So I saw the hands of people who stayed up to midnight. Did anyone brave it and stay up all night? Nobody? You're so weak, all of you. I'm just joking. I was out when I got home. No, I love New Year's Eve, man. But isn't it like the older you get, the more like you don't love New Year's Eve? And you're like waiting for that moment to come where it's just like finally bedtime. And you pass out. And then you realize that you have church the next morning, and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make it? I'm sure that coffee ministry back there was cranking today, wasn't it? There's tons of people out there. I got coffee. I don't even drink coffee, but I went back there, and I was like, today's going to be one of those days, girls. I'm going to need the strong stuff. I was like, I don't know what strong stuff is. I don't drink coffee, but just hook me up. But that's how I feel about New Year's. And I want to welcome everybody here to the Crossings Church. I want to applaud you for showing up on New Year's Day, because I know that it can be a late night, and it can be that much harder to want to get up early on a Sunday morning. And so just by sitting here today, I think it sets a huge example for what God has in store for you. This could be an easy day. Normally New Year's Day, jobs cancel, they call off because they realize that people need to relax, they need to catch up and recoup from the night before. But I truly believe that this is a church, and if you look around and see that there's a large amount of people here, that there is something so beneficial about being a part of this church, about showing up to this congregation and being a part of this family. So much so that people would rather give up sleep on a certain day that they might get called off on to be here and fellowship with one another. So I'm glad that you guys are here today, and I think you picked a perfect week if you're visiting with us as well. Because today what we're going to do is we're actually going to wrap up a sermon series that was through our Christmas series, and we thought about, it's the new year, let's just cut this sermon and we'll start a new series because it's the beginning of the year. But this last sermon I thought was perfect for today, and so I told our team, I said, let's just keep it, because I think this is probably one of the better principles to talk about on New Year's Day. Out of all Sundays, out of all the days of the year, this is the best year, or this is the best time to talk about this. Because what we're going to talk about today is purpose. And if you think about it, the beginning of the year is probably the best time out of any time of the year to talk about purpose. And the reality is that literally every single thing has a purpose. Everything. And I was trying to think of things that didn't have purpose today, and I was like, I got to find something, But literally every single thing that you can think about has been made or has been naturally grown on this earth for a purpose. Grass, it's meant to feed, it's meant to provide some sort of irrigation. There's different things. This beam is meant to support this building. This mic on me is meant to communicate a louder sound. My shoes are meant to provide support and protection for my feet. Literally everything, any type of food that you guys can think of has been made. I can sit here and I can pinpoint the pen in your hand is meant to write and to communicate language. Literally everything on earth has a purpose. And I was like, well, what about dust? Come on now, dust. And I had to look it up, and I was like, is there a purpose to dust? And it says, the household nuisance actually purifies the air by neutralizing ozone that can harm our lungs. I'm like, all right, I'm done. I can't find anything, And I was like, I didn't know it did that. And it's working because dust is mainly made up of our skin cells. And so that helps reflect the sun. I went into a wormhole, guys. And I was like, whoa, I did not know this much about dust, But literally everything has a purpose. So my question to you today is, do you know yours? If everything created has a purpose, if God has given everything a purpose, do you know yours? And the reality is New Year's Day, the day that we choose to make all these resolutions, I believe when people make resolutions, at the core of those resolutions, there is some sort of byproduct that shows your last year you were not living up to the purpose that you thought you were intended to live. When people say, I need to get into the gym more. It's the new year. Gym memberships are half off. Why do they do that? I don't know. Yeah, we know. We know why they do that at the beginning of the year. It's because everybody thinks they need to get in the gym, right? But at the core, what we're really saying is last year, I don't think I was living up to the full potential or the full purpose of my health or what my body was created for. And so I think I need to get back into the gym, and I need to fulfill that purpose. If we start saying, I need to read more books, or I need to get involved more in literature, or I need to get myself more educated, what we're saying is, last year, I probably had a lot of downtime, and I could have been having more purpose with my mind. I could have been expanding my knowledge. If we talk about maybe getting a better job, and we think that it's so, what we're saying is, I don't think the job that I currently had last year, or that I'm currently in, is really fulfilling a purpose that I'm meant for more, or that I could do more. And so literally when we make resolutions, what we're saying is we look back at our past year and we can find indicators in our lives that make us feel like we're not living up to the full purpose of what we feel like we should be living for in our lives. And even as a disciple, maybe you know what we're going to talk about today, and maybe you do know your purpose. You know what Jesus made you for, and as we walk through these points, you're like, I already knew that. You can probably also go back to this last year and realize that maybe you didn't live up to that purpose. Maybe I know what we're going to talk about today, and I know my purpose. I know what God has given me. It's not a new surprise. It doesn't change every year. Scripture stays the same. So every beginning of every year, you're going to look in Scripture, you're going to find the same exact purpose. And so maybe you do know. But maybe you look back at this past year and say, I know my purpose. I just necessarily haven't fulfilled it in the way that I believe God's wanting me to. And so no matter where you're at today, if you don't know your purpose, if you don't know what you're created for, or if you do, this sermon, I truly believe, will give us an opportunity to look at our lives and look at purpose and figure out, why don't we start setting purpose and start setting goals for a resolution in the way that God would want us to versus the way that we have been. And that's what I want to talk about today when we talk about purpose. So if we're going to first start talking about purpose, we need to look at Jesus and the example he had and the purpose he had. If we're called to model and be like Jesus, first thing we need to know is that Jesus was commissioned by the Father to save the lost. That was Jesus' purpose. Jesus was commissioned by God himself to save the lost. It says in Matthew 1:21, it says, "Then after her baby is born, name him Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins." You see, Jesus had a purpose just like we do. And it's so important for us to identify what Jesus' purpose is, because there's going to be a parallel with our purpose in his purpose. In 1 John 3:17, it says, "God didn't send his son into the world to judge it. Instead, he is here to rescue a world headed towards certain destruction." You see, ultimately, Jesus' purpose was to save the lost. It was to come for us and to give us an opportunity to live a new life. And so what we're going to do here in a minute is we're actually going to take communion to start today, because I want us to set our minds on this idea of what purpose could look like for us. You see, we set these resolutions in our lives, and we set these ideas of what purpose is and what it's intended to be. But if we really looked at our lifestyle and we looked at Jesus' lifestyle, and if Jesus had a New Year's resolution, would it mirror ours? If you've already set resolutions, or you've already reflected on this last year and what you want to gain this next year, would those be the same things that Jesus would set for his life? And if I think we took an honest look at what Jesus did in his life, if we took an honest observation of how Jesus chose to make changes in his life, these resolutions or whatever it may be, I think that they were more geared towards saving lost people. To the point that he chose to die on a cross for our sins to give us an opportunity to have that same purpose. But yet when we make these resolutions, they're not so necessarily focused and centered on saving the lost. They're more focused on our success in our jobs, or our intellect, or our status, or our relationships. And those are the things we want to set goals on. And so today, kind of what I wanted to do is, as we take communion, I want you guys to think about the purpose that you feel like you have in life. And then I want you to think about Jesus' purpose and why he came to earth and why he did what he did. And I truly believe that if we can find a connection to the two, it will do one of two things. It will either affirm us and it will give us an understanding of what Jesus was and give us a reassurance and an encouragement to continue to walk that walk just like he did as he laid his life down for us. Or it may challenge us to reevaluate what we think is important in life. It may challenge us to look at an example of what Jesus did on the cross and say, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to look for a new purpose. Maybe it's time for me to look at what God did with his son on the cross for me, and maybe evaluate the things that I should prioritize this next year. So I'm going to say a prayer, and we're actually going to take communion now, and then we're going to jump into this lesson. God, I just want to thank you so much for the example of Jesus, that was his ultimate purpose, was to come here to save us, to give us an opportunity to live a life for you, to live a life of hope, to live a life of understanding, to live a life of family. And God, I pray that as we look through our lives, as we look through just this next year, that we can always keep Jesus and the message of the cross at the center of that. And I truly believe that if we can do that, this year will be one of the most purposeful years we've ever had, Lord. It will be the most purposeful year we've ever had. And it can continue to be a lifestyle and not just a year. But God, please keep that at the center of our hearts as we share the Lord's Supper. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Amazing love, now flowing down from hands and feet that were nailed to the tree. As grace flows down and covers me. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Amazing love, now flowing down from hands and feet that were nailed to the tree. As grace flows down and covers me, and covers me, and covers me, and covers me, and covers me. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Amazing love, now flowing down from hands and feet that were nailed to the tree. As grace flows down and covers me, and covers me, and covers me, and covers me, and covers me. He covers me. He covers me. He covers me, and covers me.
Okay, so here's the big reveal of your purpose, if you don't know yet. Just like Jesus was commissioned by the Father to save the lost, you and I are commissioned by the Son to save the lost. You see, we have no different purpose than what Jesus had while he was here on earth. Just as God created Jesus as a human for a purpose, that is the same exact purpose he created all other humans on earth to serve for. That is your gift. That is your gift of purpose. This beam's gift of purpose is to literally support. The pen's gift of purpose, the chair's gift of purpose is for you to sit in it. Your gift of purpose is to save the lost. Everything else in life that you choose to do is meant to either aid in that purpose as a tool or be an example for that purpose as to why you continue to do it. Literally everything. If everything is circulated around that purpose, then everything that we do with our lives has got to be centered around what God created us to do. So if God created us to save lost people, that means that everything in life that we do has got to be centered around how we save lost people. If nothing can be taken to heaven but other people, then everything that we have here has got to be used to take other people. All of our money. How do you use your money? All of your talents, all of your gifts, your parenting, your marriage. Literally, all of those things are meant to aid or to be used as a tool for us to fulfill our purpose as to why God created us in the first place. And that's our purpose. John 17:18, just as you sent me into the world, I'm sending you into the world. It's so important for us to know what our purpose is. And if you get anything out of the sermon today, I want you to know you have a purpose. If you hear anything today, you see, because so many people live life without purpose. So many people live life trying to find purpose. So many people switch jobs, they switch careers, they switch marriages, they switch living situations, they switch habits because they're trying to find something that is worth meaning. But the reality is that the problem with people is that they continue to find different things that do not bring meaning because there is only one meaning for why you're created. There's only one meaning for why I was created. And I've spent a lot of my life trying to find that purpose. You know, I grew up without a dad, and my whole life was confusing as a kid because I didn't know what I was created for. I didn't think I was created to, have a great lifestyle. My mom was a bartender. I grew up in bars with her because my dad wasn't around, and so I'd spend a lot of time in the bars with her. And I thought, I watched people come in and out of those bars, and I saw their lives that were miserable because that's where people go when they're miserable, is to hang out at bars, right? And I just thought, man, everybody's got different purposes, but nobody likes what they do. That's just what I heard. And then as I got older and I got to high school and I started seeing kids playing sports, and I watched ESPN and SportsCenter, and I'd see people being like, this is what I was created for. I was meant to be an athlete. And I was like, well, maybe that's what I was meant to do. And so I got into sports and I got involved, and I thought that was my purpose, and I lived for that for a long time. And then women came along, and I was like, whoa, maybe I'm meant to be with one of them, And so then I spent some time in high school trying to find somebody to be with, to be like, this is my purpose, is to be with somebody else, And what I never realized is I went from thing to thing to thing, trying to find that meaning, to find that purpose. And it wasn't until I got to college that some college students brought me in and read some of these same verses that we're talking through today and said, you only have one purpose. And you spent your life trying to find this, and now you know. Here it is. And so we have a decision to make. Are we going to continue to look for things that are meaningless because that's all we found is meaningless things on this earth? Or are we going to listen to God and listen to the purpose He has connected for our lives? In 1 John 3:17, it says, God didn't send His Son into the world to judge it. Instead, He is here to rescue a world headed towards certain destruction. Oh, I already read that verse. I'm so sorry. In Matthew 28:18 through 19, I just didn't scroll up. I am here speaking with all the authority of God, who has commanded me to give you this commission. Go out and make disciples in all nations. You see, that was the Great Commission. That was the great mission. That was the last thing that Jesus wanted us to know about our lives as we move forward in the Gospels. He says, your job, my job here is done. Your job now, your mission now, your purpose is to go out and make disciples in all the nations. That's our gift. You can take it or leave it. It's never going to change, though. You could leave this church building today and be like, no, I got other purposes, man. I got a job, I got kids, I got family. And until you realize that this is never going to change, you're never going to find fulfillment, true fulfillment in any of those factors of life. Even for me, growing up without a dad, now that I'm a father of 3, I love my life as a dad. I find incredible purpose in being a father and parenting and giving my kids something that I never received as a kid. But I found out very quickly that if I didn't make that a contributing factor to the ultimate purpose of my life, I would not really be giving my kids anything beneficial. I would just be repeating a cycle, but I would just be present where my dad wasn't. I found purpose in different things. But the reality is that the ultimate purpose always comes from God. And so, if that is our gift, if that's what God has given us, this mission, then we have some requirements that go along with that. If we really want to do this to the best of our abilities, if we want to find this purpose and fulfill this purpose the best way we can, the gift of mission requires me to do all I can do, first off, to talk like Jesus. If we're going to use Jesus as the model today about what purpose looks like, I've got to learn to talk like Jesus. Now, this doesn't mean like, if Jesus spoke Hebrew or Greek, like, you ain't got to go learn a new language. He's not trying to get us to understand, we've got to, speak different languages or we had to speak in different accents. It's not like literally talking like Jesus talked, but it's talking about our dialogue. It's talking about how we communicate with people. It's talking about the purpose of why we communicate with people. It says in 2 Corinthians 5:19, it says, "For God was in Christ reconciling the world to himself, no longer counting people's sins against them. And he gave us this wonderful message of reconciliation." Why do you talk to people? Why do you choose to interact with other people? Have you ever thought about that? Why do you not just go through life silent? Why do you just not go through life? For some of you guys, you'd be like, my life would be so much easier if I just went through life silent. You haven't met my wife. Or you haven't been around my kids long enough. I tell them to shut up and leave me alone. And, I don't want to communicate with people all the time. Sometimes we think that way, right? That life would be easier if we chose not to communicate. But the reality is that we are relational beings. We are around people. So, there is a choice to have to talk to people. My question is, why? What's the purpose? With our coworkers, well, we talk about just what's going on in life. A lot of times it's about the bad things. We're nagging about our husbands or our wives or our kids or the things that are going on. If we're at school or college, maybe we're talking about what's going on in pop culture. We're talking about TikToks and Snapchats and Netflix and all the new shows that are out and all the celebrities. Have you heard what's going on with the Kardashians today? No, I haven't. What's going on? Oh my gosh, they broke up again. Whoa, crazy. 2 weeks later, they're back together. Crazy. A week later, they broke up. That's what we talk about, right? And I know some of you college girls talk about this because you guys watch those shows, right? And I hear it at my house. I'm like, I don't care. But then I'm sure you guys feel the same way about me, being like, hey, do you hear what happened with that sports trade? Crazy. 2 weeks later, you hear about what happened in that salary? It's crazy. You hear about having that team? Look what happened. So we all have our things we talk about, right? The question is, why do we talk about those things? Well, Jesus himself said that everything that comes out of our language should be something that has to do with reconciliation. That it should be a message of reconciliation. Romans 10:17 says, "So faith comes from hearing the good news. And people hear the good news when someone tells them about Christ." Pretty self-explanatory statement, right? People hear the good news when somebody tells them. But not a lot of people hear the good news when we talk about football, right? Not a lot of people hear the good news when they hear the updates on the Kardashians, Now, I don't believe what this verse is saying and what this point is saying is that every single thing that comes out of our mouths has to be like, Jesus died for you. Hey, nice to meet you. Jesus died for you. I don't think that that's the context of what he's talking about. But literally everything that we talk about should have an underlying purpose in why we are talking about it with who we are talking about it with. And I believe that so many times we go through life talking about things just because it's entertaining to us. Just because it's something we want to talk about, but not with a purpose of why we are talking about it. You see, I think God has given us these things to talk about, whether it be sports or pop culture or jobs or families or different things we're interested in. I think he gives us those things for a purpose, to use those as a window to create a deeper purpose to share the good news. But I think a lot of times we live life just talking about news, and we never find the connection with news and good news. You see what I'm saying? And I think it's so important for us to find that balance. That why do you have friends? Why do you have relationships? Why do you talk to people? Is it just because you like those people? Is it because you are a product of convenience and like you just have to be around those people because we work with them, because we go to school with them? Or have you found the connection of purpose that you are around those people because God put you around those people? And that you're meant to talk with those people because you're called to give them the good news. And so you find ways to have those conversations about sports and pop culture and things like that so that you can create an opportunity to talk about something much deeper. You see, it's hard to just share the good news if you're not even being relational with people in the first place. John 1:14 says, "The Word took on flesh and became human." Why do you think he had to become human? I mean, the Word is the good news, right? So why did he have to become a person? Well, because people are relational. To live alongside us. We have seen him enveloped in undeniable splendor, the one true Son of the Father, evidenced in the perfect balance of grace and truth. You see, Jesus came to show how to talk relationally with people, to give them a purpose and other relational aspects within their dialogue. So if we're going to choose to talk like Jesus, we have to find this balance of grace and truth in our language and in the way that we talk. And I think that's so important because I've said this before with people, but like, I believe that you guys ever heard like the friend zone, right? Where it's like you like somebody, but like you haven't really expressed it to them, but like you like talking to them, and so you're just like, hey man, at one point I'm gonna shoot my shot, you know, like I'm gonna try, I'm just gonna become friends for a little while, and then like that window has passed, and now you're just really good friends, and you're stuck in that friend zone where it's like it's never gonna happen because you're really good friends now. And have you ever had that like whole like, hey, I like you, and then the response is like, I just don't want to like mess up what we have, you know, like, because like if it doesn't work out, like then, like we're just really good friends, and I don't want to lose that, you know. Has anybody ever heard that before? Some of you guys are so embarrassed. You're like, every single time I talk to a girl, that's what happens, you know, like, you know, and like we get stuck in this friend zone, and it's not fun because you're like, all right, well now we're just friends, you know, and like you shot me down. I believe that there is something called a spiritual friend zone. And I think what happens is Christians accept this mission, and they believe that our purpose is to go and seek and save the lost. And we spend so much time talking about relevant things in the world, pop culture, books, you know, video games, sports, whatever it is. And we create this friendship, but we never entwine the good news into that conversation. And now it's just awkward, right? Because we've invested in this friendship for weeks, months, years, and for me to now talk about Jesus would just be weird, right? Because we're too close now. And I've never talked about it yet, so now for me to bring it up in the midst of a deep friendship, it just comes across weird. And I believe that a lot of times we get stuck in the spiritual friend zone because we realize we are called to be relational with people, but we never bring God into it until it's too late. And then it's just hard and weird because it doesn't fit our character from how our relationship was built in the first place. And I think that's why it's so important to realize how Jesus talks with people, because I don't think Jesus ever got stuck in a spiritual friend zone with people because people knew where Jesus stood right off the bat because of how he communicated with them. But the way he was able to do that was through a perfect balance of grace and truth. You see, you can't speak like Jesus just in truth with no grace, because then you just come across as a jerk, right? If you come across and you just want to be truthful with somebody the whole time, you're like, hey, my name's so-and-so, and oh, hi, I'm Jake, and you find out pretty quickly that, like, there's, if I'm meeting like a college guy and I realize he has a girlfriend and we're playing basketball and he makes a joke about how he's sleeping around with his girlfriend, I'm not going to go straight and be like, hey, man, I know we just met, but, like, that's really wrong. Like, what are you doing? Hey, by the way, you want to come to church on Sunday? I'm being truthful, right? Did I say anything that would contradict what the Bible says? I didn't say anything wrong, did I? So why is that wrong? Well, there's no grace involved, So you can't just speak truth without grace. Because you just come across as a jerk, you come across self-righteous, you come across as a person who's not really instructing people and giving people an opportunity to see the relationship. Vice versa, you can't just be the graceful person without truth, because then you just create enablers, right? Oh, that's no big deal. That's no big deal. Oh, you're fine. Oh, I get it. Everyone sins. Oh, you don't have to worry about the way that made me feel, And we become pushovers, and we become people that just enable people to continue those behaviors because there's never truth involved. And so grace without truth is pointless, and truth without grace just makes us come across as self-righteous jerks. So Jesus made it very clear that we have to have a perfect balance of the two. So like Jesus, I must speak words of grace. They both have to be apparent. And if I'm going to speak words of grace, look at what it says in Luke 4:18-19. It says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He has anointed me to bring the good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim that captives will be released, that the blind will see, that the oppressed will be set free, and that the time of the Lord's favor has come. Take note of some of the people that he's talking about here. He's talking about poor people, talking about captives, talking about blind, he's talking about oppressed. Those aren't people that are living in perfect lives right now, right? Those aren't people that are understanding what and who God is. Those aren't people that know the good news yet. And it would be very easy to remain frustrated with those people, right? To lose patience with those people. Do you guys have friends or family members or coworkers in your guys' lives that they don't know the good news, but you get so frustrated with how they live? Is there anybody that rings a bell in your head, you're just like, man, I cannot stand being at work today with this guy, All he does is cuss right around me. All he does is he comes to work hungover, and then it makes me have to work even harder because he ain't doing his work, Or this person's coming in and all they want to do is talk about all their drama. Or this person's always coming in and they're flirting with it's just so inappropriate, and it makes my life harder. Well, the question is where is your grace in those opportunities? Do you come across as somebody that shows grace in the midst of oppression? I've had to start talking with my daughter, Peyton. She's in first grade now. And I'm starting to find out that a lot of the kids she goes to school with don't live like she lives. A lot of the parents aren't parenting the way that we parent. A lot of the kids say certain things or do certain things, and she's starting to pick up on those things. And so there's got to be a point in my life where I had to start talking to my daughter and be like, listen, you've got to be okay with kids not doing things the way that you do things. You can't come across and be self-righteous and be like, that's wrong because God says so. She still doesn't know how to communicate yet. She's in first grade with how things are working, but I'm trying to get her to understand that there has got to be grace with people in the world who don't know the good news yet because they need that. If they're going to find the good news one day, it's going to be through us, and the only way they're going to see it through us is if we're patient enough and graceful enough with those difficult people. So I want to encourage you guys to maybe make some notes today. Who are those difficult people? Write a couple names on your notes today that you just can't stand, that just really frustrate you. And maybe make a resolution this year to be more graceful with those people. Just write a couple names down that you guys can think about. But like I said, We don't just need words of grace, but like Jesus, I must also speak words of truth. Truth has to be right there next to it. In John 17:14, I have given them your word, and the world hates them because they do not belong to the world, just as I do not belong to the world. You see, before truth sets people free, before the good news can give people freedom, it tends to piss them off first. Like, people don't normally just accept God's word and are like, yes, I've been waiting for somebody to tell me that my life is wrong. Nobody feels that way. Nobody likes hearing that. It's probably why one of my favorite verses in all Scripture is Galatians 1:10, because it talks about how and who we're going to please. Galatians 1:10 talks about how, are you going to please people or are you going to please God? Because you can't please both. And if you're really going to please God, you can't be worried about pleasing people. It's the Jake paraphrase, right? But it's Galatians 1:10, and I love that verse. And I think Paul was trying to get us to understand that we probably need to be forewarned that the world is going to reject a lot of the good news. They're going to reject a lot of the truth. So just like my daughter, when I talk to her about being graceful with random kids that she meets and her friends at school, I have to also have that conversation to say, but that doesn't mean you can't say anything. It's okay to be patient with people. It's okay to make sure that you aren't just like condemning people for what they're doing wrong, but that doesn't mean that you should be a pushover and allow anything or whatever to be said or happen around you. You need to stand up for yourself. You need to stand up for kids around you. You need to stand up for what you believe and what mom and dad do teach you at home. Now, that doesn't always mean they're going to like what they hear. That doesn't always mean you're going to be friends with every single person. But you have to have truth in your life. And just like you guys wrote down names of people that you probably need to be more patient with, I'm sure you can think of some names of people that you haven't spoken truth to. That you've been more graceful because maybe they're more intimidating or it's harder to have conversation with those people. And you just haven't had that conversation. You haven't shown truth, but you've just shown only grace. If you can think of a person or two for that one, write that one down. Think of a person or two in your life that you're like, this year, my goal is to give this person more truth. I've been too relational. I've been in that friend zone for too long. It's time for me to give them some good news. It's time for me to give them some truth in life. God has prepared us to handle both of these and balance both of these, grace and truth at the same time. But so many times I think that us being rejected by the world results in us rejecting our full mission. I think when the world rejects us more and more, we choose to use that as an excuse to not fulfill God's mission. We let rejections from people say, I don't like talking to people because they just say no. They say F off. They say, I don't want to be like you. I don't care about God. I don't believe in God. I don't think that these things are good things. And we hear that time and time again. And at some point, the discouragement starts to set in, right? And we're like, you know what? I'm going to stop saying truth to people. I'm just going to focus on the graceful side and the serving side of Christianity. And I'm not going to focus on the bold side. And what we're really saying is, you know what? I don't think I was meant for the purpose that God had given me. We can't let the rejection of the world force us to reject our purpose. They have to go hand in hand. We have to continue. 2 Timothy 4:1 says, I solemnly instruct you, proclaim the word of God and stand upon it no matter what. Rise to the occasion and preach when it's convenient and when it's not. You see, if we're going to be truthful people, if we're going to be truthful with our purpose, it doesn't matter what's going on around us, and it doesn't matter if people want to hear it or not. We have to communicate that to people. We have to make sure that our language is always around this. Our second point is not only to talk like Jesus, but we have to walk like Jesus, right? Can't just talk the talk, right? We've heard that before, right? You talk the talk, well, let's see you walk the walk, right? Craig does that a lot. Where's Craig at? Craig's a little, where's he at? Call him out. There he is. Good old Craig. On the basketball court, we like to call Craig a little chihuahua, you know? Because Craig does a lot of barking on the court, but a lot of times he don't walk that walk. Well, this is what he does a lot of times on the court. He goes, I'm hurting, I can't walk the walk no more. See him back there. Right? I'm just messing with Craig. He's a good baller. But it's funny, right? Because sometimes we know those people where it's like, oh, man, I'm going to mess you up. I'll mess you up. And there's like, all right, let's go. I'm like, man, come on. I'm just playing, man. People do that to Aaron all the time too, right? People walk up to Aaron like, I'll knock you up the side of the head. And Aaron's like, do it then. And they're like, you know what? I don't know what you're going to do. You know? And so I think a lot of times Christians do the same thing, right? We're like, man, I'll talk the talk, man. I love God. I love Jesus. Boom. You see my necklace, my little cross? You see my tattoo? I'm talking the talk, man. And I'm like, all right. Whose lives are being changed because of that? Where's the fruit? Where's your lifestyle? Why are you in the clubs on the weekends? Why are you hitting up all these different bars? Why are you hitting up all these different chicks? Why are you doing all these different things in your life, but you're talking a good game? The rap world right now, how many rappers talk about loving God in their songs? And then you go look at their TikToks or you go look at their Snapchats, and what are they doing? Smoking weed, drinking all these things. Got all kinds of girls around them, right? But they got the tattoos. They talk the talk. They know the language. But then there's a different language that goes on along the side. You know, God made it pretty clear, if you're going to talk like me and you really want to fulfill this purpose, you've got to live like me as well. And there's too many Christians on this earth that know how to talk the talk. I would believe that there's probably more people who aren't Christians who know the Bible more than Christians that actually are trying to walk the walk. There are more atheists that have the knowledge of Scripture than people sitting in churches on Sundays. It's not enough to just know if you're not going to live. John 17:16-17, it says, they do not belong to this world any more than I do. Make them holy by your truth. Teach them your word, which is truth. You know, the whole idea of being holy is that you're set apart for a different purpose. You're set apart from everything else because you have a different purpose. To be holy in a spiritual way is that you are set apart to be like Jesus. Not to just talk like Jesus, not to just know about Jesus, but you're set apart to live like Jesus. So that means that we are in a world that we are not meant to live like the world. We are not meant to engage in the same things that the world engages. We're not meant to participate in every little thing that involves the world's things. But we are set apart to live differently on this earth. And we need more Christians to understand that. Because the ones that aren't are given the Christian name a bad name. The number one reason why people don't go to church is because of hypocrisy. They come into a church and they see something different. They see a lot of people talking a good game, and they show up and they see something completely different by the lifestyle, and then they dip out. You see, God made it very important for us to understand that our purpose involves living in an active way, actions, instead of just an understanding. Look at Titus 2:11-13. It says, we have cause to celebrate because of the grace of God has appeared, offering the gift of salvation to all people. Grace arrives with its own instruction. Instruction's not just thoughts anymore, right? Run away from anything that leads us away from God. Abandon the lusts and passions of this world. Live life now in this age with awareness and self-control, doing the right thing and keeping yourselves holy. Right? The whole idea of grace is not to get us to sin less. You know, I'll be gracious with you. It's not to get us to sin less. It's meant to get us to obey more. We learn our lessons. Grace gives us a new opportunity to change, not an enablement to continue. And I think so many times we think grace is meant to be a pass, but grace is meant more to be an instruction. Grace can give us an opportunity to instruct. It can give us an opportunity to inspire people by what has happened through grace. It can enable us to walk in more of a relationship with God. But how do we communicate about grace? Man, thank God for giving me grace because I was just so messed up. You know, and then we get right back into that stuff. God gave me the grace to not mess up, you know, and then we get back into that stuff. Thank the Lord for God's grace. You think that's why God created grace? For us to continue to do the same things over and over again just so we can have the grace? No, God gave us that grace so we can say, God delivered me from this. And now I'm different. And now I'm set apart. And now I have a new purpose. And now I have a new instruction. That's why God has given us grace. So we can have something completely different to live a holy lifestyle and not to live anymore the way that we used to. We walk a different walk now. 1 John 2:6, whoever says he lives in Christ, that is, whoever says he's accepted him as God and Savior, ought to walk and conduct himself just as he, capital H there, walked and conducted himself. If you truly call yourself a disciple, a Christian, if you went underneath that water and you've been baptized in God's name and you've decided to live a life for God, well, now you're going to choose to live a life and conduct yourself in a different way. And that's what we need. You know, when my kids go into like a certain area, you know, if we're like, you know, like if you go like different places in the world, like different stores or different restaurants, things like that, your kids can act different ways, right? There's more grace given depending on where you're at. Like if you walk into like a McDonald's and your kids are like, I want a Happy Meal, I want a Happy Meal, right? You're like, all right, you can have a Happy Meal, that's going to be great. But like if they walk into like a Bella Milano or something like that and they're like bouncing around like, hey, I want a steak today, you know, like, you're like, hey, conduct yourself, this is a fancy place, right? You hear this to your kids? This is a respectable establishment, right? And like we can't act like that while we're in here. Or like they dress a certain way or they do whatever it is, right? And you see the difference in the place that you're around. You're like, you need to conduct yourself in a different way because this is a more respectable establishment. What God says is the minute you go underneath that water, you are changed to act and dress and to live a completely different way because heaven is a more respectable establishment. And that is your home now. And you are here to live in a respectable way like you would in heaven one day. And everything that we choose to live in and everything we choose to walk in here on earth, some of those things will not be in heaven. But we engage in them like we think they will be in heaven. We are called to live in a way like we are called to live in heaven one day. So maybe there's a challenge there for you. Maybe you need to ask yourself and look at your life and say, you know, this next year, what are some things that I have not been walking in, or some things I have been walking in that I probably need to stop because it's not in the way that God would want me to live. It's not in the way that fulfills the purpose he gave me in the first place. 2 Timothy 4:16, be careful about the way you live and about what you teach. Keep on doing this and you will save not only yourself, but the people who hear you. You see, now we have a generational impact. Because the way that we live is going to, in some way, impact the people around us. This is the role model verse. You're a role model for the people around you. You know, I see athletes on I listen to interviews from time to time, or, you know, and I've heard certain athletes live a certain way, and then they get questioned by media and say, you know, there's lots of kids looking up to you. Why do you choose to do these things? Why do you choose to still go to these crazy parties and drive your car and get into these wrecks? And I've heard some people, some of these athletes and high-profile stars say, I didn't ask to be a role model. You know, I didn't ask for people to look up to me. I just do what I want to do. Well, I want you guys to understand that God has given you a purpose And just like those athletes, whether you like it or not, you are a model to someone, whether you understand that or not. There is somebody in your life that is looking at your lifestyle, hoping to model it, mirror it, or look at the hypocrisy in it. Just like athletes, whether you like it or not, every single person has a model. And that's why God made it so important that he had Timothy tell us that you need to make sure that you be careful about the way that you live and what you believe. Because not only will it save you, but it will save the people around you. But conversely, if you're going to live in a hypocritical way, that potentially may damage somebody else in your life because of the way that they see you living your life. It's so important for us to realize that it's not just the purpose is meant to fulfill us, but the people around us are going to be impacted by that as well. And if I am going to take a minute to step out and say something, I want to kind of hit the parents here in the room. Because you guys have an obligation more so than anyone with your children by the way you guys live life. I'm challenged by this because I know that there's hypocrisies in the way that I live on a Sunday morning and the way I communicate when I get home. And I hate that. And now I know why there are so many preachers' kids that are like the bad kids in the world. Because it's because I'm not checking my heart when I get home. And the way I talk the talk sometimes on Sunday mornings is not necessarily the way I walk the walk when I get home and I'm tired and I'm exhausted and I'm losing my patience with my kids, or I'm choosing to be selfish with my lifestyle or my time or my money or my energy. And my kids pick up on that. And so I have to challenge myself because I know one day my kids aren't going to be in that little kid class anymore. They're going to be sitting in here listening to me say these same things, and then they're going to watch me go home and do something different. And it messes me up to think that my kids may one day not want this life because of things that I do that I shouldn't be doing. And I think so many times we look at our kids and we think about the patience that we lose with our kids, and then we wonder why one day they're not here no more. We wonder why our kids are in different places in the world and different relationships they shouldn't be in and different focuses, and they don't really know God's purpose the way that we want them to. You see, you got to watch the way you walk and the way you live because your kids are picking up on that stuff. And for some of us, it's not that we can blame our kids. We need to blame ourselves by the way we run our houses. And what's most important in our houses? Is God in our house? Is his word in our language at home? Or is it all about the worldly stuff that we choose to focus on? Are our kids engulfed in TV? Are they engulfed in social media? Are they engulfed in sports? Are they engulfed in all the money that you choose to give them to spoil them? Or are we feeding our kids the same purpose that we should be feeding ourselves? Hypocrisy is huge. And if we're not careful, we're going to lead them down a lifestyle that's not fulfilling and it's not meaningful at all. And so for you parents, I really want to challenge you guys, just like I choose to challenge myself every day, because I know it's not just a one-day end-all, be-all. It's a daily struggle to be different for our kids. And for you young kids, for you students that aren't parents yet, some of you guys see that example. Some of you guys in this room have parents in this room that you look at their lifestyles. And I want to encourage you kids, first and foremost, like we talked about, to be truthful with your parents when you see things differently and to be graceful with them. But also to find that model of what it could be like for you one day. So we've got to walk that walk. And then lastly, we have to care like Jesus cared. If we're ever going to make this a long-term, lifetime, long-lasting commitment to fulfill our purpose, care has got to be at the center point. See, John 3:16, we all know the verse. God so loved the world that he gave his only son. Whoever puts his trust in God's Son will not be lost, but will have life that lasts forever. You see, God's care for us, God's love for us, is the ultimate source of our purpose. It's the ultimate fuel of our purpose. And the minute that we stop forgetting that God loves us, our fire for purpose starts to fade away. When we stop forgetting how much God loves us, we start looking for other things that we can be loved by in the world. We look for the money, right? We start taking higher paying jobs that take more of our time. We start looking for our families more. We start spending more time at home because they give us more affirmation. But we start to forget what God has given us. And so our purpose gets skewed because we try to find other things that we think are loving towards us. So everything is centered around God's love. That's where the fuel comes from. But what's going to continue that is once we've received God's love, and we know that we have God's love, and we continue to live in God's love, the purpose comes when we find how to send that through us to the next person. When we can find how to give God's love to somebody else, to care for somebody the way that God has cared for us. That's the connection of everything today, is to learn how to be like that with somebody else. In John 15, 10 through 13, it says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep in his care. The hired hand is not like the shepherd caring for his own sheep. When a wolf attacks, snatching and scattering the sheep, he runs for his life, leaving them defenseless. The hired hand runs because he works only for wages and does not care for the sheep. You see, just like God is a shepherd for us, we are called to be shepherds for other people. We are meant to care for other people. And until we can find that connection to truly care for other people, we will not truly fulfill our full purpose in our life for God. It's so important to find this understanding of care. And for so many people, that's the biggest struggle, isn't it? I don't care for other people. You know, like, it sounds so harsh to say out loud, but like, we all feel that way, right? You know, when it's like, hey, I could go be relational and get coffee with somebody, or I could watch one more episode on Netflix, right? You know? You guys watch that new Wednesday Addams show? That show's so cool, isn't it? You know? I could drop a lot of coffee dates to finish that show. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's certain shows that are like that. Or Yellowstone. Yellowstone's a really popular show right now. Man, I could turn my phone off for a couple days if they would keep cranking episodes out. I could keep ignoring people, if you know what I mean, right? When a new video game comes out, sometimes I'm like, all right, this weekend's a blackout weekend. You know, like I'm on this game all weekend, you know, and I'm not talking to anybody. And we can choose to find things that are more entertaining in the world. And what we're really doing is saying, I care less about people than I do about this thing. You know? We don't have to say that because that would be mean. You know? Like, but that's exactly what the actions indicate, though. You know? And I think sometimes, you know, as a campus minister with our college students, sometimes I try to get people to find that connection. And I'm like, hey, like, you didn't show up to this because you don't care about these people. Oh, no, I would never say that. I would never do that. I had this thing. I had this thing. So what you're saying is that thing was more important than these relationships. No, I wouldn't say it like that. Well, then how would you say it? Well, it's just this thing. I really had to do it, and it was really important. But which one was more important? No, not you. I love you. I should have been here. And I'm like, but you know, like, and to find that connection, because when we can find the real connection, the root of the connection, we can be more challenged by it. And I want to challenge you guys, when we choose to bail on hanging out with people for our own interest, or when we choose to ignore people because we just know it's going to be a long conversation, or it's going to be a challenging conversation, or it's going to be a deep conversation, or they're a rambler and I got 20 minutes, you know, like, when we can choose to identify that there's other things that we enjoy more, we can find that the real root is that we don't truly care for people the way that Jesus would have us care for them. That we're not really shepherding. We are more like, verse 13, we are more like the hired hand that runs because we only work for wages and we don't really care. We're really only here for the benefits because we don't really care all around for the sheep. And God calls us all to be shepherds. I want to make that pretty clear as well. that you are called to be somebody that loves other people, that takes care of other people. It's not just a preacher's job. It's not just a minister's job. It's not just a titled job in the church. It's a purpose kind of job. It's a people kind of job. And we are all called to do that in some way or fashion. So if that's true, well, how do we care for people? Well, Jesus did it in two ways. The first way is Jesus displayed his care for people through serving them. He served people. It says in Mark 14:14, says, when Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. You see, you got to do work. You can't care for people if you're not willing to work for them, And that could be getting your hands dirty. He healed people. He healed sick. That probably wasn't a very fun job, If you ever seen The Chosen, there's a cool scene where he's in a tent and there's just this line of people that keep going into him and he keeps healing people. And I'm like, some of these people are nasty looking, on the show. Sickness is not like a clean thing. But yet here he is putting his hands up and he's like, all right, who's next? Blah, blah, blah. And it could be a disease, it could be a sickness, it could be literally anything that was going on. And that's nasty, man. I don't do blood. Is anybody here like that? Anybody's like, I can't do blood, right? I can't. And some people are like, how many of you guys are like, I love working in the blood industry? You guys are like, I don't mind pricking people with needles. How many of you guys hate getting pricked with needles? You're like, I just can't do that. Yeah. All right, well, then you're not blood people. You think that you are, but you're not. And there's just something about that for me that's just nasty. I can't do it. It's going to make me get faint or whatever it may be. But God said sometimes we've got to get our hands dirty. And that's what service is. Sometimes that is going into that person's house that's just disgusting and cleaning it with them. Sometimes that is taking out a big, nasty chunk out of your bank account to help somebody that needs it more than your bank account does. Sometimes it's that taking that giant chunk of time that we sit at home lounging to help somebody get to work one day, or to help, whatever it is, it's serving. It's going out of our way to help meet some needs of somebody else. That's genuine, true care. That's fulfilling a part of purpose. But once again, like we talked about grace and truth, you cannot just serve people and think you're being purposeful with your life. I got to make that pretty clear, because once again, a lot of Christians believe that that's the source of purpose, is to serve and only serve. And maybe that's where you've been at today. Maybe you've heard churches like that, and I'm trying to tell you guys today that that is an element of your purpose, but that is not the only purpose. Because here's what I'm trying to say, is I think a lot of times people will go to a soup kitchen, and they'll just be here quietly, and they'll continue to serve and to serve and to serve, and then they will go home, and they think they did the Lord's work. That is an element of what God has continued to give us. But serving by itself is not real purpose, because you need the second point. Because Jesus displayed his care for people through teaching them. You see, in Mark 6:34, it says, when Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. He understood that there was a need to serve these people. But the biggest word in here is so. Circle that word, so. Since he knew that these people needed serving, he chose to serve, but so he began teaching them many things. This is the connection that has to happen with caring, guys. There is no amount of service you can do on this earth that will make a lost person saved. Period. You cannot serve a person enough to get them to heaven if they do not know that there is a heaven. And I believe that some Christians believe that all they have to do is just serve without truth, without teaching, and people will have this epiphany that they can be saved one day. And it doesn't work like that. Our relationship with God instructs us to not just serve, but we serve with a purpose to teach. In this last verse, 2 Corinthians 5, 17, 18, it says, this means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone, a new life has begun. All of this is a gift from God who brought us back to himself through Christ. And God has given us this task of reconciling people to him. I encourage you today, if you have this mindset of just serving, that is a great, incredible talent, and everyone should be called to serve, and that should be a great example that you give people. But if you're not teaching people alongside that and giving them the good news and showing them that there is something different through your service that they can receive with that, I encourage you to start giving truth as well. You start teaching them why you're serving instead of just doing it blindly. And I think that we'd have more people that would see their full purpose if we had more people who were serving and giving truth rather than just serving and thinking that they're being do-gooders in their ministry with God. And so this whole sermon today, guys, this whole idea of purpose is, one, first and foremost, I hope that you guys can find that this is your purpose. This church, the Crossings Church, is a great church, and my family and I have chosen to involve and invest our lives in this church because we see this church is a serving church, but this is a church that gives hope to people and gives truth to people. And there's nothing more exciting for me as a campus minister than going to a college campus and meeting a brand new kid that I've never met before and being like, this is my job. Not because I get paid for it, not because the money comes in for this, not because I want this high income, but I do it because I get excited knowing that somebody may change the way that I've changed. Somebody may get hope the way I've gotten hope. Somebody could be different because of what God has given me. And here at the Crossings Church, we train every single individual to live like that in this body. I don't care if you're a young junior high student or if you're an old senior citizen that's just ready to croak. It's a mission that we see in Scripture, and it doesn't have an age requirement. And we believe here at the Crossings Church that everyone should be and live like that. And so what I want to encourage you guys to do is pull out your communication card, because this is your opportunity. This is your New Year's resolution. If you're really serious about your relationship with God, this is your New Year's resolution. On this card, you can communicate how you want to change, what you want to commit to, if there's help that you need. If there's an addiction in your life and you look at yourself and you say, this is the things I need to change. I've got an addiction. I don't know how to get out of it. We have support services for that. If you're looking at community and you're saying, I don't know how to be relational, or I'm looking for a family, I'm looking for a way to fulfill my purpose, you'd like to know more about small groups. If this is the first time today that you've ever heard about this purpose and you're like, man, you're right. My life has been rough and I finally see that there's a purpose for me. I just don't know a lot about it. You'd like a personal Bible study. And somebody will get more involved with that. I don't know where you're at today, but I encourage you guys to make your resolution this year one that's not going to change every single year. Make it one that's going to be long-lasting, and I really, truly hope that we can have a congregation of people that truly understand their purpose and know their purpose and fulfill their purpose in the way that God wanted them to, and not the way that we believe we're supposed to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say a prayer, and we're going to sing a song, and that's going to give you guys an opportunity to fill out that communication card. And like I said, I truly hope that you guys will take the leap of faith today and just make this year different. There are so many things I'm looking at in my life that I want to communicate and I want to commit to being different. And I pray that you guys will take something from this lesson and find a way to change your purpose in your life as well. And then after that first song, we're going to send some baskets around, and that's for our contribution and that card. If you're visiting with us today, I don't want you to put in money. We didn't get you here to get you money. We don't think that our money's better than yours. If you want to contribute, that's totally fine. That's for our members because they understand that that's part of their purpose, but that's not for you. We came here, and we hope that you guys are here to put that card in for a new resolution for your life. We want to give something. That's what this church is all about. And so I'm excited that you guys are here. I pray that this could be a great start for our new year. Next week, we're going to be talking about our banquet and our theme for the next year. So if you're visiting, this is a great time to start coming to church because of what we have in store. So let me say a prayer, and we'll wrap it up for today. God, I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about purpose. I know I went kind of a little bit longer today than I normally do, but God, it's just so important for us to realize that purpose is so essential in our relationship with you. God, I know that there's been so much of my life that I've lived without purpose, so much of my life that I lived trying to find purpose, but God, I finally am living my life with purpose. And I see the benefits in my kids, I see the benefits in my marriage, I see the benefits in my day-to-day tasks in life, that nothing I do now is for my own gain, but it's all to fulfill your purpose. And I find more meaning in that, Lord. And I pray that everyone in this room can find what that purpose is. And if they're looking and seeking for that, God, that they will please communicate on that card and send it your way, Lord. I pray also in your son's name. Amen.